It was our correspondent Dennis Temple giving us insight into our background for our conversation this morning, and I'd like to welcome our guests here in the studio. Let me begin by introducing Professor Emmanuel Adano, who is the Director General, National Water Resources Institute in Kaduna. He was also Chairman, Technical Committee, Presidential Committee on Prevention of Flood Disaster. And we're very glad that he's able to join us again for this conversation. The last time we had a similar conversation, he was also here. Professor Adano, thank you very much, and good to see you today.
Good morning, viewers. Thanks.
Also joining us for this conversation, and for the first time, since he became the DG, Architect Umar Mohammed, the DG Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency, NISA. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us for this conversation.
Thank you very much. Good morning, viewers.
Okay, thank you. You're welcome to the program. Also joining us for today's discussion is regular Dr. Emeka Okengu, a development economic analyst. You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Pleasure. Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right. So good to have you again. Now let's kickstart our conversation this morning with the DG, National Water Resources Institute of Kaduna, Professor Emmanuel Adano. Now let's look at what are actually the challenges in harnessing these excess rainfall in Nigeria, and how can it be addressed?
Yeah, thank you very much. See, when you say excess rainfall, sometimes I get a bit scared. Do you have enough water in Nigeria? Now, historically, Nigeria has a renewable quantity of water annually. For the past 13 years, we have an established renewable quantity of water. Whether it has been exceeded or not, we're not sure. So you can't say excess water. Now, during rains, like August and September, we normally have excess rain. And if you cannot contain this water, it spills. We start calling it excess rainfall. Whether the rainfall pattern in Nigeria has increased or decreased, we're not too sure. I think the main problem is harnessing this water that comes before it even arrives. Now, when we were drawing out our report on prevention of flooding in Nigeria, there are certain strategies about 10 of them. Two very particular ones were how to harness the water that comes to Nigeria from outside and from within, rainfall and also transboundary waters. Now we are taking into consideration how, because if you harness the water gradually when the rains are coming, you have enough space for the rainwater to be stored for various purposes. Now, if you don't have such structures that can harness this water gradually over the dry period until the rains come and the spaces are not there, you start having this overflow. Climate change, because we easily say climate change is responsible for almost every problem we have on Earth now. Climate change is just an increase in temperature, basically. And what responds to increase in temperature is the most vulnerable and dynamic, which is water. Temperature variation, either too much of it or little of it. So when climate change is coming into play, let's look at our environment. Where do we think this climate change can affect mobility of water, the behavior of water, and see also how we can tailor this water mobility to the benefit of of our economy. Right now, we have a problem in Maiduguri, right now to speak. About 9 days ago, or thereabout, we had heavy rainfalls in the upper part of Adamawa, the Mandara Hills. Now, it has no link with the Benue or the Niger. But these are rivers that go through Sambisa Forest and then come to Alau Dam and then Maiduguri. Nobody monitored that. So, when these rains were getting too much in those Mandara Hills, they were flowing into the Sambisa forest. Sambisa forest is the one that is providing the water for the dam that has this problem now
in Bono.
In Borno. But incidentally, 3 rivers enter, 2 come out, 1 gets vanished there. So that's the one that provides the flooding and within the Sambisa forest. Now, a forest is an environment that also slows down flooding. But when it gets filled, so we now, instead of monitoring this through the Sambisa forest, we didn't care. It gets filled up, then Ngada and Yetsaram, the 2 rivers that come from there, they originate from the Mandara Hills. They go through the Sambisa forest and come out. It was saturated. So when the rains were coming more and more, within the Nigeria, downstream of the Sambisa, this dam could not hold the waters coming anymore. Now the dam was constructed, I think, middle 80s, 84, 86, thereabout. It breached 1994, the spillway, the emergency spillway. We went there, we checked what was happening there. Between this time and today, the sedimentation in the dam has increased. The dam is just 9 meters high. Lots of sediments have accumulated within the dam. So when you look at the dam and see it's as wide as you are looking at it, the depth is very small. So such heavy rains will come. And the dam is not the way, because it breached before, we put some emergency activities at the side there, like some dikes. One of the dikes gave way, according to what I heard. So the dam now could not take that huge water. So we have an overflow. The spillway also was a bit distressed. Now, if we had managed that dam very well from that time, and also seen how we operate the dam, because any dam constructed has an operational value and manual that you use. If we had operated that dam after the sickness of 1994 very well, I think we would have contained some, because we need to have deseated the dam sufficiently to take more water.
Prof, let's allow you to take a breather. Thank you for the perspectives that you have given us about that dam. And I'd like to bring in, before we bring in our farmer, in-house farmer, Dr. Gungu, yes, I'd like to bring in the DG of NISA, architect Ibrahim Mohammed. Many people have been expressing surprise at what has happened in, Maiduguri, the extent of, the overflow of the dam, and of course the devastation. In fact, a correspondent said it's the worst in 30 years and all that. But from your perspective, are you surprised that it happened? How do you interpret what has happened?
It's beyond actually our normal flood outlook. It has gotten beyond that, because the data we collected, did not actually forecast this extent of damage. So, and rightly, yeah, we could also attribute it to the intense heat, we experienced. That's the climate change, so which actually is generally now unpredictable. You can hardly predict what the weather, is going. Like now after the rainy season, when it's cold season, you expect also, you'll be expecting a lot of the cold, what do you call it, intensity will also be, So that is the expectation generally. Our own activity is just to have a holistic overview of what could likely happen, and the projections of how the rainy season is going to turn out, which we've done that.
So it was outside of your prediction, it was outside of your outlook. What had happened in Maiduguri was not captured in the outlook. Is that what you're trying to tell us?
No,
because
I think he's saying
What
that
else?
it's beyond the expectation.
Thank you
yes,
very
that's
much.
that's
That's
that it
what
was
he's
not
trying to say,
captured
yes.
Yeah.
in the outlook.
Yeah.
But Prof had indicated that the surrounding dams as well, had excessive rainfall, and I'm just wondering if NISA was aware that that could have happened as well to
surely.
affect the allowed dam.
Yeah, actually, we trace because what has happened in Madagali and Mubi is through the Hudu Hill,
Yeah.
the water that came from Mandara,
Yes.
as you rightly said. Now there was also a little bit of, not little bit, there was huge high flooding at around Madagali like last week. So that's the same thing that we've traced, and it ran through the Yezram River down to the is it Daga? Is it Daga? Yeah. Dam. I mean river down to that dam. So actually we've followed it, but we wouldn't know the exact situation of the dam. We wouldn't know the capabilities of the dam actually.
Okay.
So those are where the I think challenges
Okay.
yeah came from.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much for your contribution there, DG NISA. Okay, Dr. Oking, let's bring you in here now. We're looking at this excess rainfall and managing it, harnessing it, for proper usage. And just like the DG said, that the dams are not properly managed, and it's one of the challenges that we are facing right now. So what role can irrigation actually play in utilizing this excess rainfall for agriculture, and what initiatives you think should be implemented?
Well, first I think we should build a back end, based on what the professionals have said, and four factors will come. First will be containment, second will be M&E, third will be early warning systems.
Okay.
Maybe there are failures or lack. And then the fourth, which is also very important, will be, mitigation and adaptation, where climate change now comes. Because when you're talking about climate change, we need to take it to the Arctic region. It's very important to take it to that place. Because a lot of what it is you see here now are actually as a result of the melting of the Arctic. It's very important.
Yeah.
So that because when people talk about climate change, yes, Prof has said, okay, change in temperature, but it's good to put a history, put some kind of, back end to it. And irrigation comes under containment. Okay, that's why I needed for us to be able to, take it, build on it gradually. And if I'm going to be using irrigation, I'd like to tell a story about a 1972 program, that was supposed to be establishing a dam called Kafin Zaki. It's very important that we have that perspective, because that Kafin Zaki dam was supposed to have, given impetus to 120,000 hectares of land.
Okay.
That's transcending 3 states. It was supposed to be providing water, for livestock. All right. It was not supposed to be containing a lot of, these dams. So if you just take it on face value, you call it flooding. So let us call it water management, because what we have here is water. In the case of our law, which is what we have now, I don't call it flooding. Okay, what I call it is a disaster. Okay, because of the failures of some of the factors that Prof had talked about. Mismanagement of Alo Dam. That's what we have here. So when we're talking about flooding, the penstock broke, okay, and there's a lot of water spill from the tail race runoff. And then when you have the tail race, a lot of people in managing dams do not know that tail race, or what you call the tail race runoff, is actually some very critical, factor that can help you in not only boosting your electricity needs. You can actually put, what they call strata flow matrix, one small hydro, along your tail race runoff.
Okay.
We're tying this to irrigation, and we're tying this to farming. And you see, what you have in Nigeria, unfortunately, is not farm in the real sense of the word farm. Okay, what you have are lands that people are planting. Because when you want to start talking about a farm, there are some farms that you need to visit using a chopper. There are some farms you need to visit using a small airplane. These are not plantations. We haven't talked about plantations. We're talking about farms. Not even to now take it into plantations and then to take it into belts. Again, we're talking about irrigation. And you're just not going to be looking at the volume of water that you're supposed to be releasing. And we're looking at people carrying hoe and machete and baskets. And that's not going to work. No. Because of, first and foremost, the input, that is supposed to be driving your output values. Okay? So, what is important in this conversation is to be able to now find out where these faults, where the fault lines are, what we are not doing right. How come since 1972 up to this date, we have not been able to take a decision on the Kafin-Zaki Dam? Big question.
Okay, now, it's a really big question. The Kainji Dam that you
no, it's not Kainji. The
Kafin-Zaki Dam. Yes.
There's been so many. At one time, it got very political. Prof is smiling because as part of a young consultant growing up, when he was director of dams, I used to do a lot of running around his office, to do stuff. So what it is we fail to do is to do what you call development planning. Okay. All right, we've not been able. It's the lack of development planning that is showing all the fault lines that Prof is mentioning.
Even before you come to that development planning, I just want to ask Prof, because you talked about dams, and indeed one of the known ways to contain water is by damming the water or constructing dams. And I'm just wondering, the integrity of the dams we have and whether we have enough, really.
We don't have enough. But sometimes some people come with weird ideas on television and say dams are too many in Nigeria. Now, the idea of water is the amount of water available per person. That's the only thing the government does. What is the per capita availability of water? And how do you use it? That's just the main thing in the water development. Now, if you take our population, America has about 91,000 dams. China has about 87,000 dams. South Korea, I'm just going down because of the population, has about 22,000 dams, about 40 million people. We have 400 dams. The state of Texas has 8,000 dams. The state of Kansas has 7,000 dams. We have 400 dams in Nigeria. And people keep saying that we have too many dams. We don't. Now, in our report for the prevention of flooding, there's a specific area there that is meant for construction of dams to reduce flood, to make our economy vibrant. To use those dams. And we have the ones that are very, very important and should be prioritized. We listed them there. All of them. And the volume of water they can accumulate. The hectarage of this the hydropower the potentials they have. We have listed them there. So it's not a question of... but there are some dams that are contemplated that should not be done because of certain problems. Now, my brother here was talking about Kafin-Zaki. Kafin-Zaki was one of the dams I proposed. There was a time that the only water going to Chad, majorly, or going to Yobe and then down to Bruno, then to Chad, was coming from the Jamari River, which originates from Jos. The Komadugu Yobe, Jamari, Hadija, and all these, they all combined to form Komadugu, Yobe, and then to Chad. Jamari, originating from the highlands up there. Hadija, originating from Kano area. Jamari, originating from Jos, had more water than them. So, but they had dammed the ones on the Hadija, on that corridor. So the only one taking water down to people in Yobe and Borno was a contribution from Jamari, and they wanted it dammed. So the period of damming and impoundment was a threat to the people downstream, and that's why they had this problem. It's okay. We try and arrange this in such a way that there will be no disadvantage. That's why the dam didn't come up at that time. A lot of people are having problems with it. So that's it. But in Nigeria today, we need more dams.
How many dams do you think we need, and in particular each of the states?
No, it depends. It's not every state that can take down.
Yeah, I know, especially the flood,
The
prone states.
Like now in our report, I think for urgency, we recommended, I'm not too sure of the number now because I don't have it in here, close to 10 dams. Close to 10 dams. And we put them in hydrological areas that generate more water. We have, and these we have rivers, we have bigger dams. But also advise that there are areas that you need small dams, not big dams. Those small dams can check the inflow into the major rivers. And then you operate them in such a way that in the dry season, you release the water, empty your dams, so that they get prepared to accumulate the water in the rainy season. So the dam operation is also part of it. Then there is another strategy also specifically for operation of our dams. If you have a dam, you don't just have it. You must have a dam that will have operational capacity in such a way that you release water at the time you want, you accumulate water at the time you want, preparatory to the incidences we're having now.
But what is the integrity of these existing dams? Because most times you find that these dams just, collapse and then...
They are not well
maintained.
I don't know how many...
Because if you're talking about needing more dams.
Yes. I'm not sure of how many dams that has collapsed in Nigeria that would generate this. This dam we're talking about did not collapse. It did not collapse.
It did not collapse.
No.
It's just the management.
The dam is there. Because the water receded and we saw the spillway.
Yes.
But we knew that there's some problem, too much water coming in. I was telling you that the reservoir is about 112 or so million cubic meters of water, which is not too big. And it's supplying water to Maiduguri and some irrigation activities. Now, if the dam is silted, that volume is no more there. The active volume is no more there. So you look at a flat dam, but under it is a huge volume of silt. So when the water comes, that active, the active portion is reduced. So it cannot even impound as much. So heavy rains will just go over. Fortunately, it did not break. I'm sure. In some dams, you have that emergency spillway. It's just like having a fuse in your electrical appliance. When the salt is too much, it will just break and then prevent your appliance from getting spoiled. The same thing. It happened in Goronyo, I think 2010, when the emergency spillway breached. And then, people had stayed in the track of the emergency spillway, so we had disaster. But the emergency spillway breached and the dam was saved. So we have such attached to dams. So nobody should say we have enough dams. We do not have enough dams. We need more dams in the country. Some for flood control, agricultural development, hydropower generation, water supply, and general ecosystem. Another one is forestry. We need forests at specific points in Nigeria because they check the flow of flooding. They retard the flooding. And then they also preserve water for groundwater recharge. That's why Sambisa is very important. The Sambisa forest is very, very important.
We are looking at how we can utilize the excess, water. And if irrigation is one, I'm just wondering, apart from irrigating, the farms and all that, are there other traditional ways or methods in those days, that our people employed, to prevent this kind of flooding? I don't know if DG can help us.
That was actually what brought the idea of the dams. generally across the world. You know, they're actually meant to serve as water reservoirs, trapping this, you know, wasted water.
Okay.
Traps it, keeps it for a better use. You know. So that's actually what brought the concept of this damming. And you have different types of damming. You have the dams, you have the underground water reservoirs. You could have lock-up dams and earth dams as well. You know, it could be in different stages and at different channels. So the mitigation actually is why we come up with the annual flood outlook, so that at least a development plan, you know, could be mapped out to actually harness this water instead of wasting it down to the sea. Okay. Actually trap it and make better use of it. And maybe, if you notice, after every rainy season, it will not last a few months, like 3-4 months, you see all the rivers dried up. You know, that's because we do not have enough water, and we do not harness what we have when we are supposed to. Okay. Yeah, harness it.
Okay, but how do we now harness this to leverage on it for hydroelectric power generation in this country?
The damming, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, most of the dams actually have this have hydro power stations, you know, in them, and they do generate small amount, 40, 20 megawatts, like the one in Dadinko that we visited with the Honorable Minister last week. You know, the hydroelectric part of it is actually working at its full capacity. So the idea is, when you have more dams, you could have this small hydroelectric portion generating plant attached to it. Yeah. And at the same time, having this vast of land across the country actually also being wasted. The development plan should come in place to actually make use of this vast land, you know, and the amount of water which we collect during the rainy season to actually promote or improve in the agric sector and electric generation too, which will actually, you know, bring in a lot of economic salvages. Okay.
You said earlier that the rainfall that we had just a few days ago in Bono, that it was not expected, that the volume was not expected.
The volume was actually
was okay.
Yeah.
So are we expecting a similar thing, you know, before the year runs out, you know, in maybe in Bono or other parts of the country, so that we can get prepared for, you know, such a
surely
an outfall?
It's just September now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Said it on November.
So are we expecting till November, or what time? Till what time are we expecting this?
If you notice now, it's usually most of the floods now are attributed to as flash floods. You know, we've not had the ones that they have to be opening the dams to release more water. That also is another scary moment. So, and we've actually rolled out warning messages too.
Yeah, yes, indeed. NICE did roll out warning messages, especially to those communities downstream, you know, floodplains and all that. And I'm wondering, Dr. Kengo, was there something these people could have done, you know, before this event? Let's look at the situation in
which people
those living, the communities living downstream.
A very good question.
Yes.
I'd answer you with a television interview. They had gone to Zamfara when there was lead poisoning, and had gone to ask a gentleman, why are you still doing this, having lost 2 children? And he said to them, I have 12 more to feed, and if I leave this, what do I do? Now, the man you've said, you've warned to leave, where is he leaving to? They say go to highland. Where is the highland? Probably Sambisa Forest. Probably the 12,000 or 18,000 kilometers of land, that is already lost to desertification. Where is he going to? So I think, like I said earlier, what is important to note is that when you talk to professionals like this, you take what the matter is. Now, when we talk about silting and desilting, is it rocket science? If it's not rocket science, do we have the infrastructure to be able to do the silting. We are looking for solutions now. When we talk containment, what does containment mean? Does it also now involve that we create proper channels, okay, that will now look forward to these waters being released? I mean, you look at that channels and you're even angry that Lago hasn't released water. Because the moment Lago releases that water,
you find...
Yeah, in fact, you can go and trigger something in Lago for them to release the water. You know why? Because you have a containment program.
Precisely.
Now, you are not just carrying this water and putting it on these channels. You also now have delineated your land. Okay, like Bauchi that I'm talking about, the Kafinzaki. Remember that Bauchi, it has one of the biggest ranches. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of accumulation of livestock there, and all of a sudden they disappeared. Why did they disappear? There were two reasons. Reason number one, there was no water for the livestock to drink, and there was no grass for them to eat. Now, if you had a channel that could now, refertilize, okay, some part of this land that we're losing to desertification, that is a result of now the land heating up and drying up, you could actually now grow, forage, a lot of which, can grow under very harsh desert environments. So it's one thing for us to, identify the problem. It's very easy. Mm. But I think the bigger issue is that what happened in Lao, could we have had artificial intelligence to tell us, you know what, in the next 24 hours, this dam is going to collapse? Those technologies are available on your phone. So
this containment program you talk about, who should bear the responsibility to put that in place?
There are two ways to look at it first. You either present it as a government program or present it as a business. If you want to present it as a business, which you should, what you first need to do is to be able to present that resource. What are the three resources we have? One will be land. Mm-hmm. But it will be land that is clearly mapped and delineated. Two will be water. It will be water that you can be able to assure the person that for you to be able to cultivate this land, we are going to be assuring you this. Okay? Three will be security. It will be to say you are going to be having security of tenure and security of investment. Okay? The moment you throw that up, people are looking for land. People are looking for land. People are going to jump at it. Mm-hmm. The other way is to also now do it the way of government. But in doing it the way of government, you'll be needing to now, look at all the subsets that should come into the picture. The first subset will be federal government. The second subset will be the subnationals. Okay, and then make it a government program. And then it can become a social program. But for me, each time people talk about farming, and I say to them, what we should be doing now is disruptive farming. For all that water in Borno should be producing more yams, more vegetables, more cassava, more corn, more everything. If we're able to now change from season to cycle.
From season to
cycle. Now, what's the difference? Season is all about let us wait if the rain is going to fall. Cycle is all about we are going to make it happen. And this is the kind of farming that we are doing.
But the people too should be educated on this. How do you raise awareness?
Exactly. To be able
for be able to make use
for government,
of this circle that you are suggesting now, instead of season.
I keep saying this to you. Any day you come to my house, I will take you to my backyard and give you yams from my house. You will be there for me to harvest it, and I won't need a hoe. You can do it, Oga can do it, everybody can do it. It's called homestead farming. It's not rocket science.
Yes, but people need to be aware of it.
That's what we're saying. How do you raise awareness?
The Ministry of Agriculture, let's give it to them. The Ministry of Agriculture, is actually, doing things that we need to commend. But there has to be two handshakes. The water resources must be involved if we are going to be food secure in Nigeria. Be it drip, be it anthroponics, be it agroponics, be it vertical farming, be it virtual farming. Now, water is life. Just like water is also death. Because anything that can give you life can also take your life. And this is what we are now, because we are not managing our water. What we are seeing is our vice president, soaked, in water. He needs to be there. But in that water, the vice president is putting his feet in. A lot of sewage systems have been destroyed. Okay, a lot of gas pipelines have been affected. A lot of even dead bodies have been exhumed. Okay,
Yes,
so
just like we had.
it is water. So you're not talking about just flooding. We should have a whole medical team now making certain, because that poisoned water or whatever is what is not going to be flowing all across, the country, all the way down, to the southern. It's going to be going into farms. Okay, it's going to be going into homes. It's going to be going into so many things. So we're just not talking about, we're talking about also a medical emergency here. And in this day and time of cholera, smallpox, all sorts, it's also going to be a major disaster if we don't contain it. But what's key, like I keep saying, is that when Professor Adonu talks about silting and desilting, what equipment, what do we need? What do we need to tell the DG, Oga? Part of what it is you need to be telling, the people who are giving you money is that you must give me the equipment to set AI systems, across all these dams. So that the moment that dam is 3 inches, beyond what it should be, then the channels already in place are ready to now receive the water. You just release, and they can even automatically, those valves can deploy automatically. So it is all about your operation architecture, okay, and infrastructure that can be driven by science and technology. And it's not rocket science.
Okay.
All right. So
yes,
let's bring in Professor Adanu.
Adanu, yeah.
I want to ask this question. I mean, we have highlighted the challenges and facing making use of this excess water. Do you think we still need more policies or regulations to be put in place, for us to be able to address this?
No, we have enough regulations in Nigeria. So when we are doing this our assignment, when we are carrying it out, we called all those who are responsible for all other aspects of water behavior, water distribution, and water attitude. And all of them came with regulations. Perfect. So we say, okay, can you enforce these regulations? Can you enforce it? We have them. So the enforcement has been the problem. Let me tell you, my brother was talking about containment. We took containment as one of our, we say adaptation. We use the word adaptation. Containment. And we have a section on containment. Everything is talking about, we have there in our report. I'll tell you a story as he told us. We went to some flooded environments. When the water receded a bit, we visited them. And we took measurements of the water level on the walls and trees, some about 2 meters or more. Now, these people had come back. So we asked them, why are you coming back? Don't you think the government can relocate you elsewhere? They said the resource for their livelihood is the water. If you move them from the water, they don't have the resource. The water provides the nutrient. After irrigation, after flooding, the nutrients will come and the farming, fishery and everything. So they can't move anywhere. So we said, okay, what do you want now? They say, if only, in fact, the one appealed to me. He said, Oga, the water where they come, if you reduce them, it will be okay for us. Make it they come the way they come now. Make it come small and flood this place. Which means they want the flooding, but not that much level.
Not excessive.
Because they use that water for almost everything they need.
And that's what Dr. Kingu is talking about. Yes. The cycle and the seasonal. But for the people to be able to achieve, usage in cycle, it will need either looking at it from government or business perspective. So and I'm sure that this is your document. Sorry, Prof, because each time we have this discussion, you are very passionate about the recommendation and the work that you have done.
Sure.
And it would appear that your work had been very extensive.
It is very extensive.
What is it about your recommendation
that
has been implemented?
It was approved. We submitted it, all the report itself, as well as the recommendations. 100% approved by the former president before he left. But the onset of this, we also submitted it. This is what we had before, and look at it, the approvals and everything, and we submitted the report. See, so we are waiting for a more, well, I know funding is a problem.
So you're waiting for action?
Yes,
you're waiting for the present administration to action your report?
Yes.
With, okay, with regards to flooding and, of course, containing...
In fact, so many other things that are attributed to it.
Okay.
So many, okay. He was talking about Labdo, for instance. He mentioned it, and I was a bit scared about talking about Labdo. Now, Labdo, each time, because he mentioned something, that we want them to release water so that we can enjoy it. Is it not what he said? Now, if they are releasing water, it means they are operating the dam based on the operational schedule of the dam they have. Let me tell you, 2012, we had flooding in Nigeria. Labdo released water. And I know because I went there. Went to the dam and saw what was happening. The rainfall in Cameroon as well as in Nigeria was just excessive. So the whole length of that system was being flooded. 2022, we had more flood in Nigeria than 2012. Labdo did not release any water. So it is the water generated within Nigeria that caused the flooding in 2022, which was more devastating than the flooding in 2012. Okay. How are we managing this internally generated water resources in the country? And that's why I was saying that when we talk about excess water, no, don't have excess water. We need more water in Nigeria, but we need to conserve it. Like, it's a farmer. We need, if he needs water from our flowing rivers, there's a place we should direct this water for them to. Retention basins for them to farm, whether in the rain season or in the dry season. Now, I'll just talk about hydro. We mentioned hydropower, whether we have enough. Nowadays, you can do your hydropower using 3 different systems. One is a pump storage, that is create a dam and you have this. Then the river running, you can put a penstock in it. The river can generate electricity for you by just running, call it run of the river. Then the pump storage, which is you take water to one level, allow it to flow down. As it flows down, it generates electricity, you pump it back. So we have other ways. Now that technology is advanced, you don't need too much high dams to generate electricity. So some of the rivers that are in Nigeria today, we have identified an environment within the country. If you know latitude, 7.5 and 11, if you look at that in Nigeria and put it across, propitious environment for almost every development in water resources in Nigeria.
You know, I read this story about, of course, on the internet, about a family, you know, in one of the Asian countries whose community experienced, you know, this kind of extensive flooding, and somehow they got this, you know, knowledge about water harvesting, and they were able to, you know, explore it, and it worked for them. And I'm just wondering, is water harvesting, which is a form of containment, is it something that individual farmers can do on their own, or do they need more elaborate, you know, support and assistance? Did you?
Well, like I said, again, you know, the northern part of the country actually have also severe drought during dry season. So even if they contain this water, it will not last. It will not provide for their immediate needs. Yeah, it could actually serve them for, you know, for a limited time. But when you are looking at the dry season, and if you want to exploit, you know, the whole of that dry season, you actually need more water. So preservation of water can actually serve the small individual farmers. But I think it will be better if they have like a huge reservoir that could last them longer than instead of having a smaller one. You know, the water usually goes dry during the dry season. I don't know whether you noticed that, you know, in the up north. So a lot of these drought activities even the groundwater, you know, at certain level, like 5 meters, you know, during the past where you get available water for your dry season farming. It's no longer there now, you know. During dry season, you have to go much deeper, like 7-10 meters before you be able to access, and it becomes expensive for an ordinary farmer to access that water, so he won't be able to farm.
Okay, how does your agency handle flood forecasting and warning system?
Well, we actually have instruments across the nation that we do take the data on the response, on the behavior of water, you know. So, and we gather that data, assess them, then we come up with the likelihood of what's going to happen. So, and there are also challenges there too, because you have the river flowing, ravaging our equipments, we have the vandalization, and we have the security challenges where some of these equipments are not accessible because of security challenges, the banditry, the insurgency.
Okay.
So yeah, we do have, so that really affects the precision, the accuracy of the annual flood outlook.
Okay, how do you respond to emergencies? What you have protocols for response to emergencies?
No, actually,
like this?
ours is to give the forecast.
Okay.
Yeah, you have NEMA that responds to any emergencies.
Is the collaboration between your
certainly,
and,
we feed them, we give them,
okay.
We give them the data on the activities of water, whether we're going to have a long rain or we're going to have, you know, too much of flooding, and at so place. So we do share that information with them. Then they get proactive, they prepare, and once the disaster happens, then they rush in.
Okay.
In terms of helping, because we're looking at how even the farmers themselves can also help themselves without having to wait, you know, all the time for government. In situations like the one that has happened in Borno, you know, there could be, you know, maybe communal help as well. And you know, Dr. Kembu has talked about the business aspect of, you know, containment. And for that to happen, people have to have the knowledge and support. Does NISA provide some form of support,
like education?
For these farmers,
you educate them?
Yes, to enable them, you know, build the reservoir, because we are saying they need reservoir for, you know, sustainable, you know, use. Is there any way NISA provides some form of support to them?
Yeah, we do. As an institute, also we do researches and we do training. And we create large awareness on how to manage waters, whether be it flood or drought, or as the case may be. So we do provide such awareness, and even if it means training, we do provide training as well. And when they were talking about the displaced or the displacement of these people that are living at the flood-prone areas, you know, Nigerians needs also a kind of assurance, and that is what they are not really getting. If they will be assured that if they are being moved to a high and all the necessary supports will be given to them, believe you me, they will have they can accept exactly. But in cases where they will be moved out of their comfort zone and be left like that without the other promises, you know, being fulfilled, you will see them resisting such. That's why even if you give them kind of awareness, you know, on how to move, they could actually not permanently move to high level. They could just maybe during the rainy season, they could try and create a channel, and move maybe down inside, you know, a higher zone, and create a channel that will provide that water during the rainy season. Then maybe after the rainy season, they could actually come back and continue their livelihood as they used to. Such things, you know. But
okay. Yes, and it's very interesting what he's saying. Now, we identify flood because in our report you say we should identify flood-prone environments. Then protect the infrastructure. And then the environment itself. Now, in doing that, we visited the people and asked them. When we say, do you want to be moved? They say no. We learned so much from them. You know, we stay here and we think we're so developed or so educated and all. We learned so much from these people when we went there. We say, we'll move you. They say no. One of them said to me, okay, because I asked him specifically, were you here 2012? He said yes. And you're here 2022. 10 years? He said yes. Now, did you lose anything in 2012? He said yes. What of 2022? He said lost a lot. And you don't want to move. Then he says, sir, between 2012 and 2022, this is what I gained. Because the flooding was not as intense. And this is what I got. I trained 3 of my children, went to university and they got out. I married 2 wives. I bought pickups. You know, he was so happy what he achieved the period between 2 floods. So I said, so you can sacrifice a period of high. He said, yeah, what he lost there is nothing compared to what. So he will remain here. Again, yeah. You understand?
Yeah.
So we asked them, all right, what do you want the government to do? Because we cannot keep seeing you suffering anytime we have this episode of flood. What do you want the government to do for you? And then it was then they said, reduce the amount of water that comes when you have this flood. So it is a structural, this thing they're telling us to do. Intervention. And we have such structural intervention, dikes and not diversion, this is to protect them. So they can allow small water go there anytime they need. You see? Now, early warning. There was one lady, I asked, you don't want to live here? And he said, we know when the flood is coming. Okay. I said, where are you from? He said, I'm from Taraba. So at Ibi, when they see the flood, when they tell them the flood is coming in Ibi, in a day or 2, they know the flood is coming. So they start packing their things.
Okay.
So they have that early warning system. Okay. People talking to each other, flood is coming from Taraba, which is upstream of Benue. And then they will move their things. So we say, okay. So how do we put you into the system? He said, they tell us now. We tell our people and they will tell the other people. So we know when the flood is coming. And we said, but we don't want the flood to come. Then he said, that's your business. That they can't stop it. Okay. So it is also important for us to learn adaptation and train people.
To learn adaptation and train people.
Yeah.
So, which means that it takes us to the fact that there is need for us to still do more research and development initiatives. So when we come back from the break, Dr. King.
All right, welcome back to the program. We're still discussing how we can utilize, excess water to avoid flooding such that we had in Mitukri. And we have our guests here. Just before we went on break, Demola, you wanted...
Yeah, I wanted Dr. Kengu to talk more about this, the need for... Do we need more research and development initiatives, for us to be able to make use of this excess water? And what is the possible advantages, or how can the private sector actually come in, you understand, to utilize, to make use of this excess water?
The first thing we need is a plan, a readable, understandable plan that allocates responsibilities. The responsibility of government is what drives the interest of a private sector. The DG had, made some very, very fundamental, pronouncements. But it is one thing to put it on the wish list. It's another thing for it to be on a policy. And it's even another thing for it to be a program. And it's even another thing for it to be actioned. Okay, so where we are now is DG who says, I understand clearly the need for us to be able to secure this water. But if we're going to be securing this water, we need to secure it against very clear acreages of land. Maybe against every 2,000 acreage of land, we have a containment system that can now be managed. Okay. It doesn't have to be very sophisticated. So the first demand is that there has to be 2,000 hectares of land that is delineated. Okay? Now, you can now begin to aggregate those local communities into cooperatives. okay, on shared prosperity, if you may, to begin to now do this. So the question becomes, where does that initial cost come from now that we're complaining that there is dearth of funds? And this is where, again, I say development planning and development funding becomes very key. I was in a conversation yesterday, and I said to somebody, I said, if you're looking for $50 million, you might find out that it will take you a much more tedious process than if you had made that money $5 billion. Because the bigger the ticket, the bigger the interest. And the bigger you now have an opportunity of looking at an array of funding. Now, because we do a lot of social programs in Nigeria, we are tied to budgets. DG is tied to budget. He can't go and talk big tickets. Oga is tied to budget. He can't go and talk big tickets. But if we are talking 80,000 hectares of land, and then you have the DG that says, I have this report, I have this program, I have this technology. DG says, I have this, and Emeka says, okay, if you guys have this, then I can borrow against what you have. That's big ticket. This is where we're missing it as a country. When you talk about people moving, it's easy for people to move, but farms don't move. This is where the challenge is. Now, it takes a lot of effort, energy to do the kind of farming we do in Nigeria. And it's not as if you plant today and after 1 month you harvest. Sometimes it takes 8 months, 9 months. A lot of that period, you've thrown in everything you have, hoping that at the end of the day, you're able to secure. Now, for the northern part of the country, they have their local silos. They call rumbus, where they put some of this food. When these floods come, they not only carry the farm, they carry the house and carry the storage. So it is disaster unmitigated. So when you're talking about training, training just becomes one very small component of what we're talking about. Okay, it becomes now aggregation, okay, of resources, right? Each time I talk about this project we have with the government, the cassava value, project we have, and one of the arguments I've made and I'm making and coming to your circle and season, we have 25 or 26 states listed as frontline cassava producing states in Nigeria. And I've said, no, that's wrong. That classification is because you are tying it to season. Because right now, you have maybe 1 or 2 more weeks of rainfall in the northern part of the country. So if you have not planted, you can't plant anymore. Now, look at the landmass we have in northern Nigeria, and look at the landmass we have in the so-called frontline states. You find out that 80% of the landmass you can put to use if we had DG's program running of these small containment programs. You have northern Nigeria producing everything that we need. And then it becomes maybe what you can call a safe corridor.
Yes.
Because
Certainly.
each time I talk about insecurity, the first thing I say is livelihood. As long as something is giving you livelihood, it's business to you, and it is maybe to the person that is being offended, it becomes some kind of issue. So if we had these programs, you'll be shocked. And I won't be surprised if a lot of these young men who are up in arms and, living very dangerously, because it's not very easy to be a thief. It's not very easy to be a kidnapper.
You have to plan.
No, it's a very tough life.
It is.
Okay,
it is.
So if you gave that guy, an alternative, he would definitely, and 80% of the times when you have interactions with these people, you find out that they have no skill, they have no hope. It is bad enough that you don't have skill. Okay, when you deal with a guy who does not have a hope, you're dealing with a guy who is disaster walking on tools.
Okay.
So, point I'm trying to make so that I can close very quickly is, Demola, we need to, and I keep saying to people, I like big tickets. If we're going to get Nigeria right, we won't get Nigeria, doing pro-poor, doing social spending, doing budgetary-based, programs, saying that government should give us money to do it. Government should only now promote, if I have a meeting in a bank in America and I have Prof and I have DG, okay, and then he says, I'm DG, I'm guaranteeing ABCD. I am DG, I'm guaranteeing ABC. A minister is guaranteeing ABC. The bank, will do that ticket. That's the point I'm trying to make.
All right, thank you. Let me bring DG Nicer, and someone actually, sent this question and would want to know, now that the flood in Maiduguri is receding, and emptying into the basins, the River Benue is one of the major recipients of this flood water. He wants to know what you are doing to sensitize, the potential victims along that path, and of course government. And secondly, he also would like you to tell us when will the consequential flood arrive Lokoja and other dangers?
Well, thank you very much. We are going there tomorrow, actually. We're going to Maiduguri tomorrow, and already Prof. and also I have a zonal office in Maiduguri. They've been doing all the necessary assessments and traces as to the cause of the flood. Now, mostly after flood, what comes after is usually the outbreak of diseases, cholera, malaria because of mosquito bites, and so many other. But then at the same time, in the case of Maiduguri, we've had also that the zoo, there's a problem with the zoo, where the animals are found on the streets.
Crocodiles and all that.
Crocodiles. And this morning I heard about lion also. I don't
Oh
know
my
how
goodness.
true that one is. So there are a lot of issues, attached to that. So we're actually going there, and we're going to surely we've started sensitizing them on the health issue.
Okay.
We've started doing that, and NEMA also, which is primary responsible to manage disasters. Actually, they've been there since yesterday.
Okay.
I saw that on the news. They've been very, very active. They do most of those disaster management things.
Okay.
Ours is just to give sensitization, early warning, and we assess the damages so that we'll record it and see how it affects, or how precise the flood outlook went. And again, going downstream, actually the activities of flooding has started. All these too much rains will surely end up there. So let them just be visible. Let them stay alert. It could come today, it could come tomorrow or next tomorrow. But it's surely coming, because
that's the consequential flooding.
Yeah.
Okay,
exactly.
but he also wants to know about Kainji. There's prediction that Kainji would also spill consequential,
They've been doing so slowly.
They've been doing so. So
for over like 2 weeks ago,
because I know the communities along that area. The last time, the 2012 version of that, was devastating. So what kind of mitigation?
Even like I think a week or 2 weeks ago, it's surely devastating. Yeah, at Lokoja too. There was huge flooding, huge one. Very, very. In fact, they've not seen that for I think more than 20 years or so. There was huge flooding, and all those waters are flooding down, the tributaries, and going down the stream. Okay. So the activity is ongoing, and they should just get
the communities downstream.
Definitely.
They should be prepared.
They should move now.
Yeah, they should have moved, I think, much earlier than now.
Are you discussing with the states? Are you in touch with the states?
Yes.
Because the states, you need to carry the state along.
That's another very important point I would like to bring in.
The communities and all that.
The states need to be more proactive, in terms of this master plan that we're discussing in producing more dams. They may not have the resources, but certainly there are business opportunities, like my brother rightly said. Even if the government doesn't have enough resources to put up this infrastructure, I think they should look at the business angle in providing such things where, an investor could make profit, then the state will actually service the public. Okay. Yeah. So it's very, very key. The state government, local governments, it needs to actually work hard, very, very hard. The federal government may have the policy, and it may not have enough resources, and the directly affected places are the states, are local governments. Okay. This is where these activities takes place. Okay. So they should take, I think, a larger responsibility in handling such disasters.
Professor,
what can they do?
I just want to ask this question, because I know that this issue of excess water rainfall is not just limited to Nigeria. It's a global phenomenon. It has happened, and other climes, they've been able to manage theirs very well. What can we learn from there? How can we, take lessons from those countries and apply them here? You talked about the problem of implementation of all the, your recommendations. So what exactly can we learn from them?
When you started by saying managing excess
water.
And I don't want to be part of that, because I don't think we have enough
excess water.
Yes, we maybe for a period, what you cannot hold, you think is excess.
Excess.
That's
okay.
it. When you hold it, it's no more excess. That's why I'm saying that if you can hold this water very well, it will be very useful.
Okay.
For us. I just give you an example of this same dam that is having problem now in Maiduguri. Now, the Ngada River and Yesaram, they intend to trick our water from the Mandara Hills to Chad, because they drain to Chad. But on the way, there's a big environment there we call the Jire Bowls, very permeable environment. So most of the water comes and sinks into the ground there.
Okay.
The DG was talking about underground water storage. That's a very good one. If you enhance the water there to keep flowing, even if it gets vanished into the ground, the farmers can use it at all times. They can reach it, tap water from there. So there's a water transfer that the government is contemplating. How a water transfer? It is supposed to recharge Lake Chad, but it will not recharge Lake Chad. But it can provide enough water in that environment. So the periphery of Lake Chad can be properly enhanced with much water for agricultural development. We can follow that. So this excess water can be channeled, as you call it, to areas. That's what I was saying, retention environment. You can divert water to certain environments that ordinarily will not contain water at particular time. So if you can divert them, you can have them all over the country. But primarily, construct, even if it's not major dams, some, small head dams are the tributaries of the major rivers. They will hold the water, because those tributaries are the ones that pay tribute, we say, to the major rivers. That's why they call tributaries. They pay their water resources a tribute to the major rivers. So if you hold them, and they manage very well at times of low water, rainfall, for instance, high rainfall, you have them.
So dry season,
you just release. For one, it provides water for irrigation, and then it brings life into the system, the river system as well. You see? So we need all these things. If you can control them, we may just say, okay, too many big dams are too expensive. Okay, let's get to the smaller dams. And the states can also partake in the construction of dams. We have restricted, because the policy is that raw water can be provided, should be provided by the federal government. Only treated water that the states should do. So some states just wait, instead of even doing dams. You see? You can construct a small dam. Some of the dams I was just naming from US and all this, a lot of them belong to farmers. They generate electricity and sell to government.
And recommendations, do you make them available to subnationals as well?
Yeah, I think they sent the last National Council of States that attended, where we submitted our report to them. We were told to print more copies and send to them, and they were printed and sent to them, to the states.
The enlightenment of farmers you know, you talked about the need for individual farmers to even, you know, develop this, you know, dams on their own. And do they need the services of extension workers to be able to do this? Because I don't know.
Yeah, I think Agric is doing a lot in terms of extension workers and input. Agric has been doing that very much. For my own institute, we do a lot of researches in youth development, agriculture, water requirement per crops, and even livestock. We write reports on how to ranch and how much water is required for ranch and the kind of animals you have in your ranch because of water availability from place to place. There are some livestock that take a lot of water. Others take their water content from foliage, like sheep, rams and sheep. They don't drink as much water as cow because they take from this thing. So where you want to have this, we now come out and say, okay, if you want to do this ranching with large number of heads of cattle, do you have enough water for them? Because they consume a lot. So we now tell them what to practice in different parts of based on the water availability, constant water availability.
But what is this? What is the National Water Resources Institute at present? What exactly are you doing with regards to you know, water management? We
do a lot. We have
I'm
going to tell you now.
Yes.
I'm going to tell you now.
You have to tell us in 60 seconds because we're trying to wind up now. Because
I just told you now, water allocation. If you want to ranch, do you need to ranch this number of this in here when there's no water? So we tell you in the country where you can find this quantity of water and the distribution all over the country. What crops do you need in this area? If you have already built a dam based on certain allocations for water supply, irrigation, as well as part, now that it is not so, that the dam is silted up, can't you change your distribution? Okay. Instead of farming 20 hectares of rice, you can farm 10 hectares of wheat, because wheat doesn't take as much as... So we tell them on what to do. Whenever you see a modification of the water availability, maybe due to climate change or whatever.
Okay,
so
all right. Okay, Dr. Okengo, let's bring you in. I mean, your part in short now. What immediate, you know, advice would you give, especially for those communities living in these water-prone areas, as the farmers and the communities? What immediate? How can they raise sensitization concerning these areas?
Unfortunately, none. And I'll tell you why. You don't tell a drowning man to remove his shirt. Demola. What you do is to throw a life jacket at him. You don't say, oh, guy, keep still. What you do is to throw help. So what we need to do now is to be able to, when you're saying relocate, you need to make certain that where that person is going to, you know, fits his immediate needs. What we need to do, my advice will not be to the farmer, it will be to the government of Nigeria to first and foremost declassify, you know, our synergies. I think for now, what we need to do now that we're in these times we are, is that the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Water Resources, you know, the Ministry of Science and Technology has to come together as a unit and then be able to build this foundation for us to be able to become food secure as a nation. It's not to the farmer. Okay. The farmer is drowning. Okay, what he needs is to see that red life jacket he can hold on to.
The farmer is drowning, he needs a life jacket. Thank you. Your parting words in 30 seconds.
Well, actually, ours is to provide the necessary information with regards to the water behavior, like I earlier said, or the availability, quality in terms of distribution, and in terms of pollution also. We do check that. But most of all, again, we are also concerned with the international water governance, you know, because when you talk about climate change or water resources management, it's global. So we do have interaction and a lot of various networks as to what's happening in other countries. You know, how are they managing their water resources, and how is it impacting our man-made activities here in Nigeria as to the sustainability and the management of water. So that's what we basically do.
Okay. All right. That's the end.
That's how far we can take. We just want to thank you, gentlemen, for coming on Good Morning Nigeria. Let's start with Professor Emmanuel Adanu, the Director General, National Water Resources Institute, Kaduna. Thank you so much for always, obliging us with your presence. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
All right. We want to thank Architect Ibrahim Mohammed, who is, we just launched for the first time on Good Morning Nigeria. We hope to see you more on this program. He's the Director General, Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency, NISA. Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
And also our regular, always, Dr. Emeka Okengo. Thank you, a development economic analyst. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much, pleasure.
All right, and that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. We'd like to thank you for joining us on the program, and please do so again same time tomorrow on this channel. I am Claire Adelabu Abdulrazak. Bye-bye.
And I am Ademola Ade. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.